Hello, it's Steve. This is my first time using these Polygon 2Ds. I think they worked really well for quick sprites. They definitely worked really well for the enemy sprite, but I did run into one issue here that I wanted to note with making the player. I wanted to make it a circle, so I figured I could just programmatically put some points in a circle and let that work. However, you need to, as it turns out, initialize your points for this polygon before you change them. You can't add them at runtime. There might be a function in there, but I looked around for one. I couldn't find any reason why these points weren't getting set without having them pre-initialized at launch time. So that's one thing I ran into at this jam. A few more coming up. Hello, I'm back. Another thing that was interesting on this jam, I thought I had an interesting plan for spawning the enemies where I would put all these points out that you see here and just use those as basically position indicators for spawning where the enemy spawns and where the enemy ends up before it shoots its laser. I could have leveraged prefabs a little bit better in this situation because as you'll see in a little bit, I have to come back and readjust these points like 2 or 3 times to get the spawning working the way I want it to, and that means individually changing each point, which was not great. Could have done that a little differently, but I think in general I'm glad that I did it this way. I think overall the focus on time and plus my own personal journey with programming, I've a lot of these projects I've leaned a little bit more into the traditional procedural programming approaches. Similar to what I said last week, I could easily see myself over designing this system if I let myself, but the constraint and also the focus on procedural programming I think helped out a lot. So if you're wondering why the code looks like the code looks, this is why. Anyway, back to 16 times. I have one more, I think, in a little bit. Hello, I'm back again, as promised. I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the music in this one. It was really, important to the core of the idea, so I figured a little bit of coverage here would help. Um, the idea was for it to go faster and faster and increase in intensity, so I kind of used a shepherd's tone, sort of, I think is the name for the rising chords that sound like they're always going up. Even though they're not really going anywhere very far, as you can see probably with the MIDI here. It's kind of built around that concept, just slowly increasing intensity in the drums as well. And I also added a few other rising elements, such as an arpeggiator that always goes up, uh, and a rising bass line that is kind of barely audible but helps to keep it rooted to the key, I think. Uh, as like since these chords are kind of floating all over the place, it can be kind of hard to tell where the root note is. And I really wanted to remember where the root note was so that I could both add an additional like intense synth near the end of the track to kind of get you feeling on edge, as well as allow everything to resolve back down to that root at the very end. And I think that effect worked out pretty well, actually. So I'm pretty proud of it. Anyway, back to 16 times for the last like 10 seconds of this video. Peace.